Welcome, everybody, to another episode of UFO Man Live. I would like to introduce the people on my panel. God, I can't even talk today. Starting with Tommy Highway.
Hey, folks, I'm Tommy Highway. I'm a former government employee. I'm a network engineer. I'm an author. I'm a ufologist. Big seeker of the truth. And I think that's why we're all here tonight. Tim, as always, my brother, I'd like to thank you for having me. And Thomas, so we welcome you as well.
Nice to have you, Tommy. Thomas, introduce yourself. You're muted.
I'll figure this out one way or the other. I'm not that old. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name's Thomas FESSLER. I'm a ufologist and ancient alien theorist advocating disclosure. I'm a practicing and practice remote viewing, non-local consciousness, and vibratory spirituality. I'm also been into plasma cosmology and everything about the space and stars. So great to be here tonight.
Welcome. Glad to have you on the panel. Welcome to everybody in the chat. Tonight, we're going to be talking about several different things. We're going to be talking about the 180-day unidentified aerial phenomenon task force timetable for supposedly true transparency in regards to the UFO subject on June 25th. That segment will be handled by my cohort over here. Well, over here, sorry. Tommy Highway. Take it away, Tommy.
Okay, folks. Well, I'll tell you a couple of things about you want to which way do we want to go here? We want to go to the
UAPTF first, the 180 days.
Gotcha. The UAPTF, again, this is one of those promises made by the government that you folks that have been watching the channel, even though I have had experiences, written books about it, I am somewhat of a skeptic in certain ways. And frankly, this is one of them, but I may be in the minority here. But just to tell you what's going on, what we've got here is the U.S. intelligence officials have 180 days to release information. And according to our figures, they have about 160 days left. Now, what they're supposed to disclose here, folks, is the whole kit and caboodle, everything that they have. Wink, wink. Okay, the national U.S. intelligence agencies have 6 months to release all of the information that they have on UFOs, and it's part of the $2.3 trillion COVID-19 relief bill signed back in December. So this thing was actually supposedly tagged on to the whole COVID thing, right? Provision was tucked into the committee commitment section of the Intelligence Authorization Act for the 2021 fiscal year. That act was contained in the overall relief bill. So in other words, what happened was when they signed the COVID relief bill, and however you feel about that, one of the provisions of this bill was that they were supposed to disclose everything that they have in 180 days, actually, a certain amount of time, 180 days, as far as the information that this country, this government has upon or on UFOs and what we know about alien civilizations and so forth. Now, it goes on to say, now intelligence officials have about 180 days to give an unclassified report about the aircrafts. In other words, about what we know about UFOs. Now, for those of us that have actually seen declassified photos, we happen to notice something that's pretty much a commonality between all these documents. And that fact is that these things are actually blacked out. Most of the information that is disclosed is blacked out and or redacted for national security purposes. Okay. Now, this has been going on for a long time because we've seen UFO document dumps before. There were a dump about 10 years ago, something like that.
Right.
Again, it was almost impossible to decipher because all you got was and, it's, and how, those kinds of words, those adjectives and whatnot, not anything substantive that we could actually pull. We can make any kind of, I think, reasonable assumptions about. Thomas, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's true. They do give us little pieces of information, little bits here and there about it, but they never give us the full dump of information. They never give us the whole everything. Now, there is a bunch of stuff that looks promising about this, but we'll have to see where it takes us.
I have to agree with that. I personally think that why they have the 180-day timetable is so that they have time to weed out the files and the sightings that they do not want to release to the public. and then to also redact any information on the government documents, blacking them out so that we can't see what they don't want us to see. Because I personally believe that they're releasing this under duress. They're not doing it because they want to. They're doing it because of pressure from people researching and going out and using the Freedom of Information Act to get a hold of this information. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, without bringing politics into the situation, I mean, we've seen this before, and it seems to always be almost a political talking point during elections and things like that. And we're promised, the world, oh, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to walk into Area 51 with a camera. And Bill Clinton was real big into that. I mean, he was. He wanted to get to the truth of the matter. But the problem with it all is, in my personal opinion, I don't know if the president of the United States of America holds a high enough office or has enough clearance to be able to view this information. Maybe that's it. Maybe Eisenhower was the only person that really knew what was going on there. Who knows?
I almost think Eisenhower was in the mix in regards to setting the levels of classification so that future presidents weren't let in the know unless they had the need to know.
Right.
Just my opinion.
For your eyes only, and apparently the person who's running our country doesn't have enough set of eyes to deal with it. But honestly, there have been quotes from Obama and from Trump that they have been briefed. Trump talked about being, information about Roswell, and that on several occasions. And he's also, and Obama also was recently on the Colbert show, and he was basically on there. And when they asked him about it, and it was said flat out as something that he couldn't talk about. So it was something that he didn't know about, but it's something he couldn't talk about. So
right,
it sounds like there is an in to know there. It's just a matter of letting us know.
It's almost come to the point where plausible deniability is no longer a factor here. Because everybody else has already kind of figured that there's something else going on, something next level going on there. And by these presidents no longer coming out in complete denial, then, like you said, to your point, all of a sudden it's like they're trying to give us little bits and pieces here and there, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I want to say is, though, even though we have these viewpoints, Thomas came across a document that we want to feature here on the UFO Man channel that is in direct relationship to the 180 days. Thomas, show us what you have.
All right. So, do you want to throw me up?
I'll make you big. Hold on a second.
All right. So we're going to start off here with a document that's unclassified. I love that word, for official use only, and it's scratched out, which means it's for everybody. Now, this was sent on January 9th, 2018. So we're talking about a relatively recent release here of information going to John McCain. And there's a reason why it went to John McCain, because of the position he held within the Senate. Anyway, what they're saying is, Dear Chairman McCain, based on interest from yourself regarding the Defense Intelligence Agency's role in the Advanced Aerospace Threat and Identification Program, or AATIP, please find the attached list of all products produced under the AATIP contract for the DIA to publish. So here we've got, going back in 2018, a list of everything that they had created at that time. Now, 2018 to 2021, we've got at least 18, 19, 20. We got 3 more years of information that's going to be well beyond this document. So as we get further into the document, they're saying 38 reports. Of them, 37 are can be released, except for one because it's secret. Now, who did it go to? This document went to the majority leader of the U.S. Senate, the U.S. Speaker, the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, equivalent to like Nancy Pelosi, and everyone down the list on all the different subcommittees. So this is something that has been circling the halls of Congress and the House for a long period of time. And as we get through more stuff today, you're going to see this stuff has been circling the world for a long period of time. Now, here's the cool list of all the documents and things they've produced. I mean, literally, this blew my mind when I saw it, and hopefully it'll do the same for you as well. Here we go. First document: inertial electrostatic confinement fusion.
Wow.
We're confined fusion, electrostatic.
Like a propulsion system.
Yeah, advanced nuclear propulsions for manned deep space missions, which Trump just gave our president gave the go-ahead for. Pulsed high-power microwave technology. Tommy, isn't this something like what they're talking about? They're putting up on satellites.
Well, apparently so. And there's been rumors of this sort of technology around for years. I mean, we're definitely weaponizing space. We're using everything we have in the arsenal, I'm sure, to do so, because apparently I was just watching a documentary, as a matter of fact, today at lunch, talking about how we've actually fallen behind as a country on hypersonic weaponry versus China and Russia. So, yes, at this point, someone said something very interesting once. When you get into an actual war and you start to lose, that's the side that's losing. That's when you see the ultimate super weapons start to come out, whether they've been tested and battle approved or not. But absolutely, I mean, we're taking, there's no question that we're taking everything we can get and using it for military purposes. But this is very interesting. I mean, Thomas, you've got it all right there. This is an interesting document. We probably should share this document out to the folks.
Oh, absolutely. We need to we'll find a place to go ahead and post it where everyone can go ahead and grab it. Here's another one. Advanced space propulsion based on vacuum space-time metric engineering. Cool about this one. This is Dr. Hal Puthoff. He's over at the TTSA right now. It's probably one of their most valued assets that they have. Invisibility cloaking, biosensors and biomems. This is my favorite. Traversable wormholes, stargates, and negative energy. High frequency gravitational wave communications, like an FRB perhaps. Rolls of semiconductors and gravity research. Anti-gravity for aerospace applications. I'll speed this up a little bit. Field effects on biological tissues. Positron aerospace propulsion. And the list just goes on. Concepts from extracting energy from the quantum vacuum.
Which is also a big theorist, and it's almost been proven in so many different ways. It's almost unbelievable. It's been studied so much. But, there again, we have the energy problem and the cartels and whatnot.
Oh, God, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What this shows is that they're actually really investigating many different avenues in regards to UFOs and UFO technology, and it's been going on for some time.
Absolutely. I mean, heck, they're talking about warp drives, dark energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions.
Wormholes, things of that nature, going from 80
Wow,
in a matter of seconds. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Technological approaches to controlling external devices in the absence of LIM operated devices. This sounds like the stuff that Elon Musk is working on.
It actually sounds like the original, the craft that Bob Lazar worked on, the sports model. He said when he went inside, there were absolutely no electronics. So LIM excluded control. That would be it right there.
Yeah. Wow. Materials for advanced space platforms. We know they've been working on that, and what they recently found out just last year that the metals that these these unidentified flying objects are made out of aren't made from elements like 115 and all the other great ones that we've got. They're made from isotopes. It's a completely different way of putting metals together that
at the molecular level, which is not what we're doing. We're combining what we have as far as ore. That's the best we can do. We can refine it all day, but we can't actually create a metal.
But we can with isotopes. We've just never tried.
Right.
Because we didn't realize it.
Although there's a lot of advanced metals that are being fabricated in space. They have to do it in a vacuum. They can't do it on Earth.
Some glass that's real good to do that with as well.
Yeah.
Plastic, but it's absolutely clear. But apparently if you create it on the planet and within an atmosphere, it turns like a yellow tinge. But they do it in space and it's completely clear and more clear than glass, apparently.
Number 25 here. Just realize it's from someone here in the state of Washington. I'm going to have to reach out to this guy because this one sounds cool. Space communication, implications of quantum entanglement and non-locality.
That almost sounds like the FRB right there.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about communications non-local, which means it's point to point almost, but across the universe. That's a good long distance call.
Absolutely.
So cockpits for the area of breakthrough flight. I'll just jump through these. Detection of high resolution tracking of vehicles at hypersonic velocities. You were just mentioning that, Tommy, about hypersonic. So we are, they're doing some stuff with it. Laser light craft, nano satellites, aeronautic fusion propulsion too, quantum computing and utilizing organic molecules and automation technology. There was another one here that I actually missed. Where was that at? No, there was something about they had, stuff for biomaterials, for using biomaterials for creating crafts. I guess I missed it. All right, sorry about that. Next one we got is negative mass propulsion. The last document that's actually classified that they didn't want to give out is state of the art and evolution of high energy laser weapons. That's go ahead.
That makes sense, because if they gave that out, then they are saying to the world, hey, we've got these weapons, and that might tip the balance of power.
Yeah.
That could actually be considered a synopsis of what all the black budget money is going into, those kinds of projects right there. I mean, again, we have talk about the $1,200 toilet seat, the $2,500 hammer. I mean, those are real figures. That's not like a joke.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
where's the money going to? Could be going into those projects.
Yeah. And our intention here is to go ahead and, report on the news, but also bring you some of the factual information that's out there and stuff that we're working and analyzing. So, you're not just reading someone else's article, you're getting it from us. Up-to-date information is recent. And granted, this is stuff that's from a couple years old, but honestly, it was just, released, if you want to call it to the public, a very short amount of time ago.
Kind of like the United States Air Force just declassifying the Project Blue Book only through 2010, which to me is, I don't understand why they only went through 2010. So that means
most of your digital photography is out the window at that point.
Right, but you have 10 years and 16 days of unaccounted for reports, sightings, encounters, events, etc. Why aren't they giving us that information? Is that what's coming out with the UAPTF? We don't know for certain. So that's up in the air. But Thomas, before we go into that, Tommy, can you bring up your information? Let's talk about FRBs, fast radio bursts, and the WOW signal.
Right on. Let me go ahead and bring up my screen up.
Do that.
Okay, folks. I'll tell you, we've had signals. Technically, we've had signals from other intelligences, outer space, if you will. Where did it go? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we've actually detected signals, and SETI is one that's actually detected a lot of signals. Also, NASA's detected signals over the years. This is something that no one's denying, but it's just such a thing that it cannot be confirmed as to the origin of these particular signals. So they're dismissed as background radiation or, whatever, a quasar, a pulsar, or possibly, an episode of the Honeymooners bouncing off of an asteroid and coming back at us. And those are actually things that have been blamed for this. So let's talk about the things that, like, for one thing, that in 1977 is the WOW signal. This was, the WOW signal was a strong narrowband radio signal received on August 15th of 1977 by Ohio State, where I'm from, University's Big Ear Radio Telescope in the United States, then used to support the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So in other words, this telescope, this radioscope, was actually out there in Ohio, again, right where I grew up, just north of where I grew up, and it was designed for SETI. Okay, this is like the very first gen SETI program, if you want to, 1977. The signal appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius and bore the expected hallmarks of an extraterrestrial origin. Okay, why is that? Well, let's look into it. Astronomer Jerry R. Ethman, I believe, discovered the anomaly a few days later while reviewing and recording the recorded data. He was also impressed by the result that he circled the reading on the computer printout, and it was 6 Echo Quebec Uniform Juliet 5, and that's the actual, I guess, designation of the signal, and wrote on the comment, this is on the paper, and you can see pictures of this, WOW, in quotes, on its side, leading to the event's widely used name. This is why we call it the WOW signal. This guy was so impressed by what he was seeing, by a narrow beam signal, not even something that was like, just a wide beam, blah, blah, blah. This appeared to be coming from, at least at the time, a stationary object or something that was emitting a very narrow beam signal. Now, from what we know from quantum physics and the cosmos, at least to date, Sure, we get a lot of rapid radio pulses and things like that. A lot of that stuff is actually written off as being a quasar or a pulsar or something like that, or basically a space anomaly. And once a rotation of a planet or a body goes around it, it emits, a certain bandwidth or a signal. So the entire signal sequence lasted for the full 72-second window during which Big Ear was able to observe it. So in other words, this thing it was probably stationary, and as the rotation of the Earth began to change, the rotation of the dish that was actually hearing this thing changed, right? We lost a signal after 72 seconds. However, but it's not been detected since. So they've actually looked and they've scanned that area of space many times. Can't find it, haven't found it since. So, but despite several subsequent attempts by Ethman and others, many hypotheses have been advanced in the origin of the emission, including natural and human-made sources. Again, I went back into the quasar thing. We talked about the old television signals from the 50s bouncing back at us for whatever reason. And I guess in truth, there is an argument to be made there. We have detected those signals coming back at us for various reasons. However, we're usually able to identify those particular signals, which this one we could not. Although the WOW signal had no detectable modulation, a technique used to transmit information over radio waves, it remains the strongest candidate for an alien radio transmission ever detected, at least at this point. Okay, this happened back in '77, folks, and I remember as a child, Star Wars was big in the movie theaters, and disco was still around. I mean, the Bee Gees were tearing it up, that sort of thing. But this actually made the news. This was like the Travis Walton thing. There are various other examples I'm sure I can go into. But it's very interesting that this actually went on. Now, we go ahead and we go into the modern day, like today, and here we go again. And this is June 17th of 2020. A mysterious fast radio burst fire rhythmically throughout the cosmos, a study finds. So what they're saying in this particular article, mysterious radio pulses of waves in deep space can fire in regular patterns, a discovery that might help shed light on the cause of these puzzling outbursts, a new study finds. So what science is trying to determine, at least this particular group of scientists, this particular paper they're writing or whatever, is that this happens all the time, that there's all kinds of radio signals being exchanged between different planets, different places, different sectors of space all of the time. It's just that we in the backwoods here don't really pick them up very often. Fast radio bursts, or FRBs, are intense pulses of radio waves that can emit more energy in a few thousandths of a second than the sun does in nearly a century. So think about that for a second. In a couple of seconds, this radio pulse is so powerful. Okay, it has so much range and so much depth and all of that, that it's actually capable of overpowering a sun, our own sun, in a few seconds with, when you compare the energy expense between the two. It's amazing. That's just amazing.
Right.
Since fast radio bursts are rare and bright, they're visible from millions and even billions of light years across space. So these things can be picked up from a pretty long way. Researchers have often assumed that they come from cataclysmic events such as stellar flares or colliding neutron stars, things of that nature. Again, they always go into, let's try to find a terrestrial, or not terrestrial, but a natural reason that this is actually occurring.
I mean, like swamp gas?
Swamp, exactly. And don't forget about Bigfoot, because he's out there. We all know it, right? But that being said, I mean, Thomas, what are your thoughts on this?
It's something that we really are reaching for, because, not only have we just been able to start receiving these signals and really start listening for it and putting our ears out there for it. What's interesting is some of these, like the one we're looking at today, they go on for almost 9 minutes in length, and they repeat in exact detail. So if you think about it, the amount of information that's getting passed through these things that's coming, and it's a complete repeating pattern that's there. And in addition to you're talking about the energy and different stuff that's there, I mean, I think this one one of the ones that happened back in 2019, if the energy if there was something here to catch the energy that was being sent, there was enough energy there to power the entire planet for hundreds of years. So it's just kind of an amazing thing that we're dealing with. It's a phenomenon that's needs more explanation. And I'm sure as we get further along in communication with, the people who are flying these UFOs, they'll probably be able to give us some insight as to what's really going on with it.
Me personally, I don't care for things that happen in nature on a very regular interval. All right. Something about that. I mean, like an electrical pulse like that's happening every, 218 days. I think I've read, and it would beat 13 times, and then it wouldn't happen again for another 218 days. Now, we have seen examples of this on our own planet. Old Faithful and, in Yellowstone Park is an example of that. So it can happen, but that's a different realm, in my opinion.
Exactly.
But it's just a bink, 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 bink. I'll go quiet, and then all of a sudden, 15 days later, I'll go bink, bink, bink again. I'm going, why are you doing that?
Okay, I got to say something here. The 2019 fast radio burst, or the FRB, was repetitive, but it did change its oscillation. It wasn't necessarily the same like thrumming sound. It did change, even though it was repetitive, and it grew in volume. It didn't reduce. And because the 2019 was the most powerful one we've had as of to date, right, Thomas?
Yep. As far as I know, yeah.
That's the one that could power the planet for hundreds of years. And I do have a video on that, and I'd like to bring it up.
Yeah.
So here we go. See if everybody can hear this. Oops, always forget. Come on. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Good. This was the 2019 radio burst, recorded by Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and also assessed by NASA.
We've lost the audio a little bit.
What do you think, Tommy?
It just doesn't sound like a natural phenomenon to me. Again, I'm not, certainly not Carl Sagan. I don't have a PhD in, astrophysics and all of that business. But I'll tell you, to me, that sounds like a signal that's coming. It's in a very organized fashion. It's not static. It's not anything like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it does change. If you listen to it, it'll change here.
It builds up.
I agree.
It starts and builds, and then it has a definite sound pattern, whatever you want to think, that just continues and goes on and changes as it's happening.
This is only 3 minutes long, so bear with me.
Well, if you've listened to the audio from planets in our solar system, we've taken Cassini, I believe, or one of those probes, Jupiter, that sort of thing. They like Jupiter, I believe I just saw or just watched a documentary recently on that, and it makes noise. I mean, Saturn, I think maybe it was. It makes all kinds of weird noises, but it's creaks and weird. It's not a rhythmic thing, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
It's almost singing to you.
Right. This is more of a boom, 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 boom. Something you would hear on a radio frequency or whatever.
Which
I also
the frequency of Jupiter did change around 2012. All the planets' frequency changed.
I will say this. I think that it's a little bit on, I don't know, maybe the arrogant side to consider the fact that another civilization out there has developed the same way that we have and is able to send radio waves and radio signals, and they figured that out versus some other form of communication. I've always found that interesting. I mean, maybe that's a constant in the universe. Maybe it isn't, but I've always thought that was really interesting.
Maybe it's not a radio signal. Maybe it's the only way that we can pick up the signil.
Could be something attached to
it. Could be something else altogether. The one thing I wanted to suggest is if you've seen the movie Contact, she's listening to a signal, and this sounds an awful like it.
Hey, folks, if you can't hear it, you might want to turn up your volume.
Yeah, we got it cranked to 100% right now, but the compression of StreamYard tends to diminish the volume. So please turn up your volume.
Yeah.
Rip the
Hey,
knob
Tim,
off.
we can hear you. Yeah, and it fades out.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough of that. Now I can turn down my volume. Otherwise, Thomas is screaming in my ear.
Well, you're screaming in our ears right now because your volume is so loud.
Oh, okay. There, better?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So that's the FRB, courtesy of a gentleman by the name of Christopher DeMond. He gave me permission to use it. That is the most accurate to the letter representation of the actual FRB, because the original FRB was so faint in sound that it was difficult to hear. But this gentleman reproduced it down to the letter. NASA even gave him an award for reproducing it so accurately. So I'm just going to say thank you, Christopher DeMont. All right, next subject.
If I may, folks, the wow signal. We don't really have permission to let you listen to the wow signal, okay? That I'm aware of. But if you go out there to YouTube and you type in the wow signal, you can actually hear the audio of that as well.
Yeah,
right.
Which is interesting.
If I might say something here about the soundtrack we just listened to and the FRB and everything, back about a little more than a year ago, I went on 3 remote viewing, if you want to call it trips, listening to that particular FRB. First one was a traditional meditation, go through it and visualize it. I had full black and white video up, seeing locations, flying over stuff and everything. And it's definitely a highly advanced, civilized location. The next 2 times that I did it, I had brought in the CE5 technique of samadhi meditation, eyes open. And let's just say it was an amazing visualization, an amazing piece that I saw. From what I saw and understand, it has something to deal with an alien race that we're very familiar with, the Mantis. And it was like an amazing city structures for what they had, tall things. And I'll have to get some pictures up and show them to you and bring them out on a future episode, Tim. And it was a really, I went there the second time, and then I went back a third time. When I was going back to the second time, freaked me out. It was scary as shit, but you can't be afraid when you're going through this stuff. But it was so much I had to go back again. And then when I went to go back for the third time, literally as I was starting to go through the levels of the way to get up to that particular mental state to be able to jump to that location, I had a short gray block my path visually, like get in there, like look at me like, who in the hell are you? What are you doing here? How are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this. You need to stop. Was basically the feeling that I got, and I was like, nope, you're not stopping me. I'm going back again, and just went way past it and went back and checked it out again just because I wanted to verify what I had seen, what was there, and what was going on. And it was an amazing adventure, Tim and Tommy.
Okay, and that's from your perspective, correct?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, anytime you do a remote viewing or anyone does any kind of deep meditation or going into anything, it's always a grain of salt in an ocean of water. But, is it something that I have a confidence in of where I went and what I did and what I saw?
Right, you do, yes.
Whether I like it or not.
Since remote viewing has been proven to be an actual reality, we have to look at your information as possible.
Yeah.
The next subject this evening would be something that I'm going to do, believe it or not, which is UFOs in the news. And then after that, we're going to do, Thomas is going to talk about the UN. Well, I'm going to do this differently. Thomas, I would like you to do the UN and the CIA UFO dump information right now.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second to jump across.
So we can talk about it with Tommy and myself.
Absolutely. Let's
all
right. Here we go. All right. So first thing we're going to talk about before we jump to the stuff about the CIA and some other stuff that was recently declassified from the Department of State that blows the freaking CIA dump out of the water for content and material. is we have a document here that's from WikiLeaks that was just basically, it came out to us within the last, I believe, this week, within the last couple of days, that we actually got a copy of this. Now, granted, the document is from December of 1977. It goes between the Grenada with the United Nations acting as a proxy between the US and the UN for a really interesting subject. So what they're looking for is establishment of an agency or a department for the UN undertaking, coordinating and disseminating the results of research into unidentified flying objects. Well, there you go. UN's been involved in this too, and a lot of other places we're going to find as we go through.
Since 1977 or even before.
Yes. For undertaking and coordinating the results and research into unidentified flying objects related phenomena was taken up by the UN's Special Political Committee afternoon of November 28th by Prime Minister Gary from Grenada. Dr. Friday's remarks contained extracts and quotes from many sources of pro-UFO materials, including non-government organizations such as the Intercontinental UFO Galactic Spacecraft Research and Analytic Network. I never heard of them before. The
Galactic Federation.
The ICUFON. Now, if you search ICUFON, there's another document we'll talk about another time. It's from the Department of Energy, where they're involved with UFOs over our power plants. But yeah, it's an agency that's been around for a while. For UN correspondence and printed material, the National Academy of Sciences and Review of Colorado University's study on UFOs and so on. So as we get down into the document itself, Friday produced a copy of the draft resolution calling for the establishment of a special committee to conduct a survey of UFO phenomenon, which included the recent history and current status of the UFO phenomenon, including past and current activities of the United Nations, the specialized agencies and other intergovernmental bodies with regards to this item, and of international agreements existing or contemplated concerning possible contact and communication with extraterrestrial beings. See, it's not just about the UFOs. It's about the people inside.
Alien life.
Exactly. An account of the scientific, technological, economic, legal, political, and other aspects of this item, aka this is why we're going to go ahead and keep this all hush-hush and secret, because we think the world can't handle it, but we've been here for thousands of years. An analysis of the benefits and problems and dangers which might be faced by mankind should contact in any form be made with extraterrestrial life. There you go. An indication regarding practical means of promoting international cooperation in the furtherance of research into UFOs and contact with alien intelligent life as contemplated in the title of this item. What do you think about that so far, Tommy?
Very interesting document, to say the least. I mean, it's one of those things, if it at face value, if it's an actual true and real document, then it really fills in a lot of gaps, I would say.
Right, it does.
Goodness.
Now, one of the things here that's interesting is, look at this, point 6 down further in the document. After we get past all the UFO stuff, United Kingdom, United Nations informed us it is totally opposed to the item and has present instructions from London to vote against any UFO resolution. Additionally, UK mission informed us that a telephone conversation between Gary and AMB Richard, AKUN, on this item, Gary said he had to support it for tabled resolution. So here we've got something in 1977. We've got the, Grenada reaching out to the United States through the UN and a resolution trying to go through to start serious talk on this. And it gets shut down by the UK.
Although now the UK has released all their files.
Well, what they say is
cool, kind of like our redacted files. Pretty much the same thing.
Sure.
Exactly. Now,
who's there to audit that, I guess, is my question.
Right. Now, having considered the item entitled Establishment of an Agency or Department of the United Nations for Undertaking, Coordinating, or Disseminating the Results of Research into Unidentified Flying Objects, UFOs, and related phenomena, desiring to foster greater international cooperation in the coordination, evaluation, and dissemination of data on all aspects of the UFO phenomenon for the benefit of all mankind. Well, that's why the people in the UK don't want this to go out, because they don't want to share anything, apparently.
Right. That was back then.
Yeah. Noting that the UFO phenomenon is not related just to one country or one part of the earth, but it is a worldwide phenomenon with significant interest for all mankind. Talk about a well-written document.
Agreed.
You know, I couldn't say it better myself. That's the truth. That's the truth right there that's been locked up and classified from us because we're trying to talk it.
There have been rumors that there was a South African crash. This was back in, I think, the late 70s, early 80s. And there was actually bodies retrieved. In fact, there were living beings retrieved. And the South Africans, you know, they didn't know what to do with them. So they gave us a call, and we went and retrieved all that material and living beings. Again, this was a rumor back in the 80s. Who knows if it's true, but it was out there.
Yeah, definitely. And then we get back to the end. It says, mindful that there are growing awareness of the UFO phenomenon by peoples throughout the world, recognizing that individual countries are undertaking on their own or are taking individual interest in research into the UFO phenomenon and its implications for mankind. Conscious that the efforts to investigate and understand the UFO phenomenon could have profound effect on man, taking note of the statement on this item made by the representative of Grenada at the 35th meeting of the Special Political Confidential. Well, co-confidential. That's the first piece. And that's just like a tip in the bucket. Now, what we have in this release here, that's better than anything we've got going in the current CIA files, because as in the, should we transition over to the data dump now, Tim?
Rorschach has a question. He says, so what we need to ask, how did they get it?
Oh, how did they get this?
Yeah.
WikiLeaks. Probably off of some government server somewhere. That's where or someone gave it to them, pulled the data, and that's where it's kind of from at this point. Now, there's no one going out there and saying this is false or this isn't real. This is just out there. It's just another declassified document. I'm sure we could probably get something, a statement from the Department of State or something to try and say, sorry, we can't talk about that. Or maybe they could now because they can declassify it and it's old enough.
Thomas, did you want to talk about the information you got 2 days ago? Or did we already cover that?
No, we didn't. This is even better. So really quickly, what we had on certain stuff right now is, first of all, let's just talk about the CIA documents and everything that came out.
Yes.
The big dump from the Black Vault. Now,
look at those black marks on that Black Vault document. Look at them. They're always there.
Exactly. This is why I put this up there, because it's one of the things that Tommy was talking about, and one of the things I wanted to try and get it. So the Black Vault is a place. It's the largest online Freedom of Information Act repository in the world. So if you want to find stuff that's out there, you want to see the Crossfire Hurricane documents that were just released and taken down by the government as soon as they're put up there, the Black Vault's got them at this point. So they went out and they did a FOIA request to the federal government to go ahead and say, give us your different stuff on UFOs. And this is the first dump they got. I believe it was in the end of last year. Now, as Tommy, we were just mentioning in his prior stuff, yeah, look how much stuff is missing from this. There's nothing here, except where they get into one little spot where they talk about
unidentified phenomenon at Site 7.
At Site 7, while watching a sporting competition between Canada and the USSR on television, he steps outside for a smoke for something air and observed an unidentified sharp right green circular object or mass in the sky. The object was situated just above the site on an angle of sightings of approximately 70 degrees. And it just goes in and talks about it. So that's just an example of what we have. Another one that's been
almost like they just give you enough information to make it interesting.
Right.
Everything else has been redacted.
It is.
And they always do that. There's
and the documents.
Easter egg and everything.
1957.
Yeah.
You know, you will recall in January 1953, we constituted a scientific advisory panel on unidentified flying objects, blah, 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 going on through it. So, yeah, it's a lot of just information. There's also a lot of stuff here that's just recapping of news reports from different parts of the world, different things on television. The other thing that's missing from this are all the photos, are all the recordings, are all the movies and different things that they reference. So they gave us a bunch of, you know, crappy PDFs to look at with a bunch of stuff redacted.
No tangible evidence whatsoever.
Yeah,
No.
you have to be really dedicated to find what you're looking for.
Sure.
If you're being specifically looking for something, you know, if you're looking for a specific sighting, a certain type of vehicle, you have to be very dedicated to find it because it is very sparse in the CIA dump.
Yeah, and a lot of this information is also foreign documents from either from newspapers or from radio broadcasts. So a lot of the different stuff they have in here, for instance, this document from 1952 about military unidentified aircraft in French Morocco, French West Africa. And they talk about the report that happened, but it's not a report from a person or anything. It's from exactly the print that they had going on in the newspaper or someplace else. So it's just a recap of the news that was going around the day, but it also showed an interest and an intent for them to go ahead and actually, what do you call it? To actually go ahead, and they're actually keeping tabs on all this stuff. So
why bother? Why, if there's something there, then why even bother with it?
Well, they're actually repeating the news article in the documents, but they're really not showing you what they said in regards to research.
Just the public record, the public record of it only, and that's all you're seeing. You're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes of all this.
Right. And some of the stuff is good write-ups of what the BBC covered or different things along those lines. But again, there's not a lot of, here, let's take a look at this one. Well, you can see the quality of the text we're trying to read in some of these, and it's just documents that have had copy after copy after copy, and they've just, you know, had their freaking life copy the hell out of them because it's just, you can't, it's very difficult to read. At least, though, all the documents are fully searchable. So if you want to search for UFO, USO, a particular location, whatever it is, trust me, I searched for the word Nixon to see if there was anything from Tricky Dick in here. And sure enough, no mention of anything of Nixon and any of the kind of stuff. So any of the kind of stuff that he was involved with the UFOs definitely is not being declassified in this one. Now, if I get back to the real document. Now, this one is a document I picked up from the team called It's Redacted on YouTube. If you don't follow them, you should check them out.
You should check them out. They're awesome. Yeah,
they're phenomenal. And this is from the Department of State. And what's cool is this is actually like real UFO reports from people where they're talking about on Sunday, February 9th, 1958, at approximately 6:10 p.m. Various people in Chiang Mai sighted a low-flying object moving at a high speed. Eyewitnesses, including several Americans, were of the general opinion that the object was moving from west-east. So now we're actually getting like real UFO reports. We don't have this really over in the CIA docs, but the Department of State, oh yeah, they're giving us everything. And we'll find a way to be able to go ahead and post these documents, and we'll put it in the show write-up so everyone will be able to, at a later date, be able to come back and we'll be able to get you these docs, because this is stuff that should be shared. This is stuff you should be able to take a look at and judge for yourself. Just don't listen to me or what we have to say on the channel here. These are the documents. You can go ahead and look at them on your own as well. We got another one here from several reliable eyewitnesses interviewed. Apparently some object was sighted in the sky. And to have hit the near summit of just over the mountains east of Scampenpang would have been moving right at a minimum altitude of 3,850 feet. Again, we're talking about people with really good information with regards to all these sightings. So here we go. On stopping the car, I also saw what at first appeared to be a very high stratus cloud-colored, a bright red by the setting sun. However, the sky was cloudless, and I realized that the object was not a cloud, but more like a flaming aircraft. Another good one to check into. So there's a bunch of stuff here. Now, but one thing that I noticed going through all these different things, we could spend hours, which we don't have the time for to go through them at this point, but there was something going on right around
Did you say 1968?
April 11th, 1968, the Department of State started asking at all of our different embassies requests for information on studies of unidentified flying objects. From the Greek ministry, there's no agency or organization in Greece conducting studies on unidentified flying objects. We have another one going to the embassy of
No funding, I'm sure.
Canberra, wherever
Right,
Canberra
right.
is. Requests for information, same thing. Above the apparently the above agency has conducted no serious studies of such objects, but does maintain a file of sightings reported in recent years, together with information developed as a result of individual investigations. Another one, Department of State, going to The Hague. Same question. The embassy is not aware of any studies by either government of the Netherlands or private organizations concerning it. So something happened in the beginning of 1968. Let's say they're asking in April. So February, March, big enough to where the Department of State is starting to go around the world asking a lot of questions. So that's homework for everybody who's watching and everybody on this channel. We can figure out what happened in 1968. Is that when did we land on the moon?
69.
69. So this is a year before that, but this is when we're going and doing all of our test flights and everything else to get us up there. So
Right.
who knows? Maybe it has something to do with that.
Yep.
So
Can you show us any information pertaining to the last year that of the CIA dump, the 2010 era? Do you have anything on that?
that's what I was showing earlier.
Oh, okay. I'm
That
sorry.
we have a bunch of documents that are there. This document, I think, is from June 1st. I don't have a year. But a lot of the different documents that came from the data dump from the CIA, like you were saying, Tim, the most recent documents we had were all declassified in 2010.
Right.
And they were all documents at that time already. So we've got like what, 10 plus years since that took place.
10 years, 16 days. Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot more stuff that's there. And literally the stuff from the CIA, it's not worth the hard drive space. There's stuff there, but there's, it's like, it's like, I don't know. You're going to be digging forever and you're not going to find much of anything. So
it's all redacted garbage. That's the problem. I mean, they've gone through it and they've taken any kind of relevant or even coherent information out of those documents. And they've been doing this for decades. And, it like the Freedom of Information Act is worthless if everything that you get back is 90 or 85 or 90%, blacked out or redacted. I mean, what's the point of it all?
Right. Right. Okay, I have a UFO news clip I want to play. Triangular UFO seen near aircraft carrier. It rose out of the ocean. This is a current news clip. Take a look. Can you hear it? Okay.
Confirms something that's been rumored for a while.
I'll turn it up a little bit.
Late last year, a U.S. Navy FA-18 fighter jet took a very clear photograph on a personal phone of a triangle-shaped unidentified aerial phenomenon. That vehicle, whatever it was, appeared to be operating with a propulsion system that generated no visible exhaust. Hard to see how that could happen. The sighting likely places the UFO near a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. That shouldn't be surprising because a string of UFO sightings have involved nuclear reactors and warheads. That same report also goes into some detail on underwater UFOs, which behave in ways that science can't explain. Tom Rogan has been following all of this quite carefully for some time. He's a columnist at the Washington Examiner. We're happy to have him on tonight. Tom, thanks for coming on. First, tell us about the sighting in late 2019.
Yeah, good to be with you, Tucker, and thanks for covering this because not enough journalists, I think, do. The late 2019 incident essentially involved a U.S. carrier strike group, as with the incident 2004 and 15, doing its workups on pre-deployment, preparing to go abroad and do the missions that the Navy are assigned. And the pilots are flying off the coast, off the Atlantic seaboard, and see essentially a black triangle, white sort of indicator lights on its peripheral tips coming out of the water very quickly, and then accelerating at extremely high speed at about a 90-degree angle.
I got to stop the report right there because a lot of people have been saying in the comments that this is a TR-3B. Now, I have to say that is definitely unknown at this time because they're not ruling out alien or non-human technology. And if they're going to say that, then it could be what the TR-3B was originally reverse engineered from. Because the original triangular vehicles that we saw or had reports of, and like DB Cooper in the chat actually encountered, were most likely of alien origin and not human-made. So whether this is human-made TR-3B or whether this is an alien vehicle, it is unknown. But let's go on with the newscast here.
Yeah.
And one of the pilots took a photo, very good photo, I'm told, by multiple sources on his iPhone. And myself and Tim McMillan, who really led the charge in this investigation, have sort of tied it down. So I think the real point of note on this is that this phenomenon, whatever it is, continues to occur.
It came out of the water. So expound on that a little bit. There have been over the years a number of reports of unidentified underwater vehicles moving in ways that don't make any sense at all. Tell us what you know about that.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons the Navy is very sensitive about this topic, is because it essentially doesn't want either China or Russia in particular to figure out whatever these vehicles are, because they appear to be intelligently controlled, figure out how they do what they do, because they move at hundreds of knots under the water, or at least they can, and they maneuver in ways that would essentially render a submarine or an aircraft carrier or any, quite frankly, military warship extremely vulnerable to attack. And the capabilities, because of what we understand in terms of friction under the water, right, that these things manifest, and then what they do in the air as well, you know, this is some special stuff, whatever it is.
Well, a bullet doesn't travel hundreds of knots an hour underwater for long. I mean, I don't think any human-made object ever has. We've never imagined something like that. So what could be the explanation?
I'm going to stop it there for a minute. What do you think, Tommy?
Well, I'll tell you, the triangles have been rumored to be ours. Now,
right,
who knows whether or not that's true, but that has been the rumor of the military, let's say. And if you look at like the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, kind of a triangle shape, and the new bomber that's coming out, the Raider, also that's even probably more of a triangle shape.
Right.
And as you indicated before, the TR-3B is definitely a triangle shape. I mean, that's almost confirmed at this point.
Right. Same with the TR-6, but the TR-3B was modeled and reverse engineered from actual alien vehicles that were triangular.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, it's coming out of the water. We haven't heard about the TR-3B being a transmedia vehicle.
Yeah, right. It's not a duck, not an aquatic vehicle.
Yeah.
It's another point. Great point.
Yeah. Tim, you don't have the video that I shared with you, do you, that showed a simulation of a
sorry, I don't have it right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to try and see if I could find it. I couldn't.
It's in Google Hangouts. You sent it to me there.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, this is, it could be a TR-3B. It could be a transmedium vehicle. We just don't know that technical capability as of this time. Yes, completely silent, DB, I agree. But very interesting clip. Mm-hmm. And I do have another one here. Hold on a second. This backs up the 180-day thing. Let me make this bigger.
The Corona relief bill the president signed last month contains a provision that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. It directs the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense and the heads of other agencies, to disclose what they know about UFOs within 180 days. So what are they going to tell us? Nick Pope is an expert on this subject. He's former UK Minister of Defense. He's an official of the UK Ministry of Defense. He joins us tonight.
Love this guy. Love Nick Pope.
What do you think we're likely to learn? Will they obey is the first question. Will they actually tell us what they know? And if they do, what will they tell us?
Well, this is going to be a very interesting year for UFOs, that's for sure, Tucker. And yes, they will definitely have to produce this report within 180 days. So we're going to get this by late June. It has to be unclassified, but can have a classified annex. So the answer, what the public will get, maybe not a lot, but what the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Armed Services Committee will get, hopefully a whole lot more, and hopefully some answers to these questions that we've been asking for months now. What is going on in our airspace? What has the US Navy been encountering? And what is it that has been in these classified briefings that we know some senators have already had?
What do you think they're likely to reveal?
Well, it's interesting because Senator Marco Rubio said he would almost rather this was alien, because if it turns out to be China or Russia, then we're in big trouble, because the sorts of speeds and maneuvers and accelerations that these objects are capable of really is concerning. And I hope that we're going to find out about that. It's interesting, just before Christmas, there were some leaks. Sitting in Office of Naval Intelligence is an organization called the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. They're probably the ones drafting this report. Some leaks suggest they have not ruled out the extraterrestrial hypothesis.
Interesting.
Maybe
Interesting.
evidence of the existence of these craft, whatever they are. Have you heard that?
Yes, I've heard talk of so-called meta materials, and I think this report really will have to disclose. I mean, what the Intelligence Committee want to know is everything in government is fragmented. They want to know who knows what. They want a single official named and put in charge of all this. And this is going to include FBI, by the way, as well as the military and the intelligence community. We want answers.
John Bruno in the chat says it's fear porn.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the case. Hold on a second here. I don't know if that's the case, because I think that they're dangling a little piece of the carrot in front of us and saying, hey, here, we'll give you a tiny bit of compartmentalized information.
That means nothing in the grand scheme.
Right. We're not going to give you the whole story. We're not going to do it, because we'll lose control if we do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It isn't a matter of whether you can handle it or not. We don't care if you can handle it or not. Not really. What we care about is controlling the technology. And if we let it know that the United States has in our power the technology to do what these crafts are doing, and other countries like Russia, China, and Iran, and North Korea, and some of our adversaries don't have that technology, then there will be a tip in the balance of power on the globe, and that could cause issues.
Exactly. Hey, Tim, before we get too far, if you could put me back on the big screen again.
I can do that.
I've got that video that someone recreated. So basically, this is a recreation that someone created in 3D of the triangle vehicle coming out of the water and shooting up into the sky.
Right.
No audio, but it still looks pretty
cool.
Pretty cool, yeah.
Interesting.
Let's play that one more time. So saying it basically surfaced, came out of the water, turned around, and then shot up. Granted, it's not.
Like we said before, though, I mean, if you've mastered interstellar travel, if that's like no big deal to your civilization, underwater travel really shouldn't be a problem for you.
Absolutely. I mean, the one feedback I did give to the artist on this when they're putting it together was that water needs to be coming off the warp bubble, not off the craft. Because the craft is probably never getting wet because it's got warp going around it.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still incredibly cool.
Definitely. I'm glad we could go ahead and share that. Let me turn that off here as well. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, I'll turn it off. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, that was very interesting. Yeah, we were going to put that originally in the video clip, but how do you alter a news article? You really can't without destroying the content. So we didn't do that. Okay, we have another news report that came out recently, even though it pertains to older information, but it did come out recently. Here we go. Hold on. I got to bring it up.
A pair of Harvard scientists say a massive, fast-moving visitor to our solar system may have been a probe sent by an advanced alien civilization. Astronomers were excited to discover the interstellar object last year. It was named Oumuamua. That's Hawaiian for messenger or scout. Tony DeCopel takes a look at the evidence behind the controversial theory. He's at New York's Hayden Planetarium.
Not too controversial.
What a story.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah, I hope your son's watching. Good morning. Quick astronomy lesson. What you're looking at here is a meteorite. That came from our solar system, basically our own intergalactic backyard. Oumuamua, by contrast, is the first observed object to come from outside of our solar system. And get this, once it got here, it behaved in ways that scientists can't quite explain, which is why this team of Harvard scientists is floating a theory that even they admit is a little out there. When Oumuamua was discovered last October, it was tumbling past the sun at 196,000 miles per hour.
Not fast
The
at all.
reddish object looked like a cigar. Others thought it was shaped like a pancake.
It looks very different from objects that we have found in the solar system.
Avi Loeb, chair of the Harvard University Astronomy Department, said Oumuamua did not behave like an ordinary asteroid or give off gas like a comet.
There seemed to be an extra force that is pushing it, and it's not clear what this push is from.
In an upcoming paper, he and a colleague offer what they call a more exotic scenario. Oumuamua may be a fully operational probe sent intentionally to Earth's vicinity by an alien civilization.
Yeah, because it accelerated in spots that if it was just based on gravitational swings and everything else, it never would have happened. The acceleration never would have been there.
Well, why was Stephen Hawking so excited about this object when it first came out, when it first came into view, and he investigated it and all that? And then if you notice, Hawking went, and his entire team of scientists went pretty much quiet about this. Why?
Toward the end of his life, he came out and made a comment where he said that humans need to escape the planet Earth because something is coming. So if you take that as fact, perhaps Oumuamua was actually a probe as they were inferring.
Yeah.
Or insinuating. And if it was a probe, an alien probe coming here to scope out Earth and then leave under its own volition.
Yeah. I'm surprised Hawking didn't tell us what's coming, but I can tell you what's coming because whether I like it or not, they've called me Nostradamus.
Well, this is your, now say your
water going across the planet.
All right, say your disclaimer first.
Okay. Whatever I say, this is just different things that I run into, different things that I get shown by my higher self, whether I want to see it or not. I see all these wonderful visions of mile-high water rushing over different areas and just decimating stuff along the way. That and plasma energy coming down like giant lightning bolts and just blowing everything up. But that's for a different story.
Let's hope that doesn't happen too soon. And please do not give the timetable. That we don't want to scare.
I have no idea what timetable is. Whether I'm seeing the past, present, or future. Honestly, some of the stuff I think I'm seeing is definitely the past. Because when I saw, the giant pyramid of the moon in Mexico and the surrounding community getting, things, everything they were bustling, everything is going, water goes past, and it's just you've got the pyramids and everything else, the trees and everything is just it's all rubble.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a story for another live stream, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I do have a report that I want to bring up. It is not a news report. It is an encounter by a veteran, United States Air Force veteran, and I would like to bring this up and have you take a listen. Oops, hold on a second here. I had it queued, and what the heck? Okay, here we go. Listen to this guy.
Oh man, to the non-believers, I would say that to think that there's, not intelligent life somewhere out. I mean, out there anywhere in the universe is ridiculous. And another thing would be that until you have an encounter, or if you ever had an encounter, then there would be no doubt in your mind as to what's out there and what really is. So that's pretty much about it. To think that there's intelligent life or there isn't intelligent life out there is just ridiculous. Because there is, it's real. So, without doubt.
Yeah.
All right.
It is.
Let's see that information that you had.
Yeah, sure.
Could you have your finger over your name?
Oh yeah, sure. Here we go. Firearms qualification card, old military ID card, name card with rank and insignia, the U.S. Air Force.
All right. So let's start from the beginning.
All right. All right. Let's see. This was back in 1992. I was leaving from here, from California, going to Florida. I was driving across country to be with my wife and child at the time. She had moved from here out there to go home, be home with her family. I sold everything and tied up loose ends. And then I was driving across the country, and I was making 2 stops. One in Phoenix to see a good buddy of mine that I served in the service with. And then in New Mexico at Cannon Air Force Base, there was another friend that I was going to go ahead and stop by and see on my way to Florida. So I took off out of here and got to Phoenix and visited with him for a couple hours, and then took off. And it was in the evening when I left Phoenix. And on my drive, everything was uneventful until I got to Albuquerque. And then from Albuquerque, I was on I-40, and I took a little 2-lane state highway off of I-40 down towards the southeast. It was heading towards Clovis Air Force Base, or Cannon Air Force Base, excuse me. And in between Albuquerque and a little place called Fort Sumner, New Mexico, there was a time where, and it was about 2 a.m. I'm all by myself, and I got everything I own pretty much in the back of the car. So I'm driving along, and about 2 a.m, everything's cool. I'm driving along. I'm not too tired. I mean, everything was cool, and I was in a good mood. And of course, it's pitch black out there, and there's nobody around, and no cars on the road or nothing. And after a while, I looked up in my rearview mirror, and I could see 3 lights. There was they were in a triangle shape. There was 2 red and a yellow, or 2 yellow and a red. I don't quite remember, but as I noticed them, and they were up in the right-hand corner of the rearview mirror, and they were really hard to see. You had to really look up, and you had to really focus in to actually see them. They were kind of faint. But when I looked up and I noticed them consciously, I thought to myself, oh man, those have been there for a while. So I thought, oh, that's strange. So I'm driving along, and no matter where I would go, no matter how the road went, these things were still in the same spot in my rearview mirror. And so after a while, I decided I was going to go ahead and try and figure out what they were. So I went through this process of eliminating different things that could be what they were. Everything from, the lights coming off the dashboard, from the cluster reflecting off the windows, or anything like that. The reflectors on the side of the road, lights from the train tracks, that was out there on the side of the road. And I couldn't come up with anything, anything logical. Nothing made any sense. And no matter where I went, they were still there. And this lasted for like 30 minutes. All right. And I just went through this checklist of everything, what it could be. And I got to a point where I got so frustrated with, and this is where it gets really weird. I got so frustrated with what they were. They were really hard to see. They were real faint, and they were kind of blurry, kind of like if you were approaching an intersection or leaving an intersection that was probably a mile behind you. Okay. So they were real small, and they were real faint, but they were there, they were there. Yeah. And so I went through this period of like 30 minutes trying to figure out what they were. And when I got so frustrated that I couldn't figure it out, and wondering why they were still there, no matter where I went, they didn't move. They were in the same spot above the highway, out in the darkness. Okay. So it finally got to a point where I got so frustrated, I just threw my hands up and I said, okay, screw it. I can't figure it out. Well, the nanosecond that I said, okay, screw it, I can't figure it out, it hit me, boom. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, I know what it is. And I knew what it was. Okay. I knew that I knew what it was. And I slunk down in the driver's seat, and I went cold from head to toe. And I thought to myself, no, this ain't happening. This ain't me. I mean, this isn't happening. This only happens to other people. And so I got, of course, I got really, really frightened, and I went ahead and I punched it, and I got on the gas. And so I've got this, I'm in like an old Chrysler LeBaron. I'm in like an 86 Chrysler LeBaron convertible. So now I've got this thing going about 100 miles an hour, about as fast as it'll go down this 2-lane highway. And now I look up, and all of a sudden they're getting bigger. Okay, they're getting bigger. They're coming down the road, and they're approaching me fast. And so now I'm really freaking out. This was the most terrified I'd ever been in my life. I mean, I was so scared I started to cry. I was crying. And they got closer, and they got closer, and they're getting bigger, and they're getting bigger. And I'm thinking to myself, this just isn't happening, man. It's complete chaos in my head going on, just complete chaos. My life's flashing before my eyes. I don't know what's happening. I can't process it all, really. And they continue to get closer. And then all of a sudden, out to the right, on the passenger side, out in the country, out there in the hills, or the rolling meadowlands, or whatever it was they got out there, a big bright white spotlight came on. Just a single, what would be like a spotlight or a headlight, and it was real bright. Okay, it was extremely bright. And I thought to myself at first, like it was a motorcycle or something. So I thought, okay, cool, people, right? And so it didn't take long to realize that going down the highway at 100 miles an hour, and this light is 90 degrees out to my right, that it's not going to be very long, and you're going to be completely past where this thing is coming out, right? It's going to be behind you now. Well, I realized real quickly that it wasn't behind me. It was continuing down the road with me, parallel, and getting closer. You follow me?
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy. And so now it's getting brighter, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting closer. These things back here are continuing to come down the road, and they're getting bigger, and they're getting closer, and they're just these orbs of light.
So where was the spotlight coming from?
The spotlight was coming from 90 degrees out like the passenger window, out, from in the darkness out there. It was just pitch black. It's just rolling New Mexico desert or whatever it is. Now, also keep in mind that I was just happened to be 80 miles north of Roswell, all right, where we know what happened in 47, right? So anyway, and of course, I didn't think about it at the time, all right? And also, I didn't think about it at the time was, the fact that where I was at, I mean, I knew, all along that that area was a hotbed for this kind of phenomenon.
Yeah.
Okay. But I wasn't worried about it. It didn't bother me. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just cooling along and enjoying my ride. And like I said, about 2 in the morning, I'd been driving for, 5 or 6 hours out of Phoenix. And so this happened, and these things are approaching my car now at a high rate of speed. I've got it floored. It's just chaos going on in my head. I'm really afraid. I couldn't believe how afraid I was. It was just crazy because I knew what they were in my head. I mean, I can't tell you exactly what they were, but I know that it wasn't of this world. All right. It wasn't of this world. And they continue to come down the road, and now they're like right outside the car. Now, all of this takes place in about less than 90 seconds from the time I just said, oh man, I can't figure out what it is, to the time that it was completely over with. It was about less than 90 seconds. All right. So they're coming down, they get close. And now of course the light from the orbs and from the bright white spotlight are so bright, and it's the whole inside of the car is illuminated, like you'd see on a movie or something like that. It's all illuminated, and it's just chaos going on in my head. And it's real bright. And this one's, I can't see. And these things are like right outside the back of the car. And when they were that close, they looked like they were about, I don't know, like the size of a couple of beach balls, say, but they were translucent. You could see through them. Okay. I could see the asphalt all lit up behind the car from with color. And these orbs, they were blurry, but you could see through them. All right. Cool. And it's, so it's pretty wild. You got these orbs of color that are coming down the road after you, and they're engulfing your car.
So how far away from you did it look like they were?
Well, when I finally couldn't, process what was going on anymore, and basically gave up on the whole situation, they were probably within 5 yards, behind my car. And then of course I couldn't tell you exactly how close the one on the out to the passenger window was, but it was so close and so bright that I couldn't see, anything. Everything was just lit up and bright. Yeah. But those ones in the back were just right outside the back of the car. I mean, they were that close. Okay. I mean, you could really see how big they were, and you could see, through them and stuff. So I'm just freaking out. And it got to a point where when they got that close, and they got to that point, of course, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not even going to make it to Florida. My wife and my kid, they're just all of a sudden going to find out that I disappeared one day and never was heard from them again. And they're going to wonder what the hell's going on. So I was pretty emotional at the time. and I was crying out to God and all that other stuff, you know, if you believe in a higher power or whatever. But I was pulling out all the stops, and finally it got to the point where they were so close, and it was, they were just right outside the vehicle. Just that's where they were at, and that I knew that I was fixing to go somewhere. I figured I was going to be abducted, right? And this is where it gets wild. I couldn't fathom what was going on anymore. I couldn't process it, and I turned off. I shut down. I closed my eyes, and I put my head down on the steering wheel. And touched my forehead to the airbag. All right, because
and the car was still going.
Car was still 100 miles an hour, right? 100 miles an hour. I didn't care.
You're still alive. Maybe they did intervene.
That's what I'm saying. Now this is where it gets weird. I literally couldn't fathom what was happening to me. They were right outside the car, and I really didn't want to see what would happen to where I was going. So I closed my eyes and I put my forehead on the steering wheel as I was hanging on. I just put it down like that. Now, from that point, I have no idea how much time passed. It could have been 2 seconds. It could have been 15 minutes. And I did lose a little time actually afterwards when I came back. I lost 10, 15 minutes or something. But it could have been just, instantaneous. I don't know. But there was this period of time that I cannot tell you what happened. Okay. Up until then, I can tell you what happened. They came down the road. They chased me. I tried to figure out what they were, at first. And then when they got to right outside the car as I was being chased, going 100 miles an hour, I couldn't handle it. Closed my eyes, put my head on the steering wheel, and then it seemed like it was instantaneous. And then all of a sudden, I heard my voice in my head, like there was another entity using my voice. I heard my voice say, "Look up." So I looked up, and now I'm coming into Fort Sumner. There's a grade in the road, all right? It's coming up, and I could see the lights of the town up in the sky. Cool. And then a sign went past me that said Fort Sumner, 2 miles. Well, the interesting thing about it was that I was right in the middle of my lane, right where I was supposed to be. I wasn't veering to the left. I wasn't veering to the right. I wasn't heading towards the shoulder. I wasn't heading towards the center line. Yeah. I was right where I was supposed to be. Now, I've told my other friends this before, and other people that have asked me about it. If you go out somewhere and you get where you've got plenty of room or whatever, and you take your car up to speed, get 100 miles an hour or whatever it'll do, and you're going in a straight line, go ahead and try it. Close your eyes and just touch your head to your steering wheel, and then bring it right back up. Tell me if you're not actually starting to move one way or the other. That's just the way cars are. They drift, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you will be going one way or the other, or start heading that way anyway. You might not be off the edge, or might not be over the center line. You're heading that way. Yeah. Okay. I was right in the center of the lane where I was supposed to be. I come up over the hill, and I come into town, and there's a little Quick Mart up on the left. So I whipped in there, man, and I was frantic. I whipped in there, and I backed up right to the glass window. It had big glass windows, and I backed right up I would have backed up in the thing if they'd let me. I really would have. So I backed up, and I got to the curb there, and I backed up right in front of the store, and I got out, and I went in, and I got like a Mountain Dew or something. And when I came to pay for it, the lady that was there, she could tell that there was something wrong. She asked me if I was okay, and I said, well, I don't know. I said, I just had something strange happen to me. Some lights chased me down the highway just a little bit ago. And she just basically said, "Oh, don't let it bother you too much. Stuff like that happens out here all the time." So, right. So I'm like, well, okay, that much. I probably figured that much, but I didn't think anything would happen to me like that. So she's like, "You'll be all right." So I went and I got back in the car, and I pulled up the blanket and the pillow in the back, and I stayed there, and I just in the front seat and just looking out because I was so afraid, man. And I was looking out until I passed out. And
we got people getting chased by lights around here all the time.
9 a.m. to a beautiful day, birds chirping. It was just beautiful, man. And and I kind of the first thought that came to my mind was, I'm alive.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and I fired up the car, and I continued on my trip to Cannon Air Force Base to see that friend, and then of course down into Florida, and everything was uneventful after that. But that was pretty crazy. That was a crazy night.
So you've never had any other type of experience?
Never had anything up close.
Not even.
I've seen just one time. I've seen something in the sky that was like I said before. It was looked like a star. And I just happened to be looking right at it, and then it got real bright. It got real bright, and then it took off out into space. It didn't travel across the sky.
Yeah, I call those starlight UFOs.
Okay, yeah. Well, it didn't come to the ground. It didn't shoot across the sky like a satellite or a plane or something. This thing was just stationary, and then it got real bright, and then it just slowly took off and just got smaller and smaller as it went out into space. That blew my mind too, just simply because. What does that?
Yeah, but nowhere near on the other.
Nothing, not on the level of the other thing. The other thing, I was so afraid. That was the most scared I'd ever been in my life. I literally knew or thought that I was going to be taken somewhere.
That guy sounds credible to me because he sounds really worked up and very, very frightened by the event, even after it occurred several years later. What do you think, Tommy?
I think he believes what he's saying. I think he believes the story that he's telling us. You know, whether or not it happened or not, I mean, he seemed like, said to Tim's point, pretty credible. Certainly, there's no reason to deny the guy's credibility in any way. I mean, he's a soldier and all that, a vet, the whole 9 yards. I mean, but that's it's real typical though, if you think about it, because you know, people will stew on things for years. I know I certainly did about my experiences. And you do that because you don't want the ridicule, you don't want the questions, you know, you don't want the people's cocked eye at you or whatever, that sort of a thing. And you know, that's probably why he sat on it for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
If you ask me, I'm with Mr. DB Cooper, who said he sounded sincere. And NENNINE also says, I believe him. I believe him too. There's no reason why he'd be going ahead and making this stuff up. And his story just sounds like something that he's just retelling events he went through. He's not like having to reach for different things about it, because it's just right there because he just went through it.
Right, exactly. And the fact that he's willing to risk the credibility of his United States Air Force identity, you know, that says a lot.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Tommy?
Well, I was going to say, you know, crackpots sort of come in all flavors and sizes and shapes. We've seen that before, but a lot of times they have tells, and when you're listening to their story, they'll go back. Oh, by the way, oh yeah, then it had this on it. Oh yeah, it looked like this, after they've already, you know, progressed through that part of the story. And you see that a lot with people that I find non-credible. This guy was pretty matter of fact about it.
Right. I would say he's pretty matter of fact. And like you said before, he believes what he's saying. So let's leave it at that. Any last comments, Tommy?
Folks, thanks for coming out. We had a great show tonight. Really appreciate it. Hope you learned something. We certainly enjoyed you being here. Thomas, thank you as always for being here. Tim, thank you, my brother, for having me once again. Folks, Happy New Year, and thanks a lot.
Thomas?
Well, it's been a great show, everybody. I've appreciated the time we've had to be able to spend this with you and be able to go ahead and share all the different kinds of disclosure that we're running into at this point. Granted, we're still looking at a bunch of information that's relatively old, but we're getting some new insights, and there are things that are coming along. We'll be bringing it to you because we know that you want to hear about it. And we're really glad that everyone's been here tonight. Now, one thing, if I might ask everybody, there's been things going on YouTube lately where not everyone is getting all the notifications about Tim's great videos that he's been putting off. So if you can please, right down here, click on if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 32,000. We're so close. Please help us get there. Share our videos, recommend us if you could, and more importantly, click on that bell. And when you click on the bell, click on Get All Updates, because a lot of you aren't seeing all the great videos that we're putting out, and we would really love you to be able to enjoy the work that we're putting into this channel.
Yes, one thing I need to say is you need to click that notification bell every time you watch content, not just once and then figure it's going to be set, because sometimes YouTube just deactivates it. So you need to re-click that bell every single time.
Yes.
So please do. Thomas, you want to say good night?
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Tommy?
And I want to thank everybody in the chat for participating this evening. I want to thank everybody in line for coming. And I wanted to say thank you and good night.
Talk about an hour.